My name is Selena Crowford. I'm 40 years old, and I'm a business director for a small real estate company here in Chicago. My life right now? From the outside, it probably looks pretty simple, maybe even boring. Every morning, I'm up at 6 o'clock. I make breakfast, pack a lunchbox, yell down the hall for the third time for my daughter to get out of bed. At 5 p.m., I clock out, fight traffic, and drive straight to her school. It's just the two of us, me and my little girl Jenna, and honestly, I thought that was enough. I used to have a complete happy family. My husband Daniel was the kind of man who could walk into a room and immediately make everyone relax. He could turn any bad day into a joke and a hug. Our house used to be full of his loud, silly laughter. But in 2022, after a long, exhausting battle with illness, Daniel passed away. Since then, I've been trying to be both mother and father to Jenna. Jenna is 12 now, but back when this happened, she was 10. Old enough to take care of some basic things on her own, but not old enough to understand why life can be so cruel. The hardest part for me has been her puberty phase. If you're a single mom raising a daughter alone, you'll understand what I mean. One minute she's a sweet, cuddly kid. The next she's slamming her bedroom door because I bought the wrong brand of cereal. She asks questions that make me blush and Google search in the bathroom so I don't give her the wrong answer. I've been lucky, though. At work, I have a colleague named Monica. She has 2 teenage daughters, and this calm, steady energy I wish I had. Whenever I feel lost about how to talk to Jenna about girl stuff, Monica is the one who gently points me in the right direction. Sometimes, when Jenna needs a female adult who isn't her mother, Monica will spend time chatting with her, just the two of them. Hearing all that, some of you might already be asking, where's your mom in all this? Why doesn't she help? Do you have a sister? Why not ask her? I do have both, a mom and a sister, and once upon a time, I thought they were my support system. My mom's name is Patricia, and my sister is Laura. Before Daniel died, our relationship was not perfect, but decent. We had holidays together, the occasional family dinner, birthday calls. After Daniel passed, I told myself, at least Jenna and I still have them. Every weekend, I'd bring Jenna over to see Grandma. Mom would hug her, kiss her cheek, and fuss over her hair and clothes. Back then, I felt grateful. I thought, okay, we're broken, but we're not alone. I had no idea how wrong I was. 2 years ago, a single Saturday forced me to make the hardest decision of my life. I chose my daughter's safety over my own mother. And if you ask me today if I regret that, I don't. Not for a second. The story I'm about to tell you happened in June 2023. Back then, Jenna was 10. That morning started like any other typical Saturday. Jenna was off from school, and I had an important meeting with a potential client. Not just any meeting, this was a real estate development deal I'd been nurturing for 3 months. If it went well, it could change my career. Originally, I planned to take Jenna along. She's usually quiet if she has a book or her tablet, but the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable I felt. A 2 to 3 hour meeting in a cafe with a child silently waiting, fidgeting, getting bored. It didn't sit right with me. I didn't want her to feel like a burden. My usual backup plan wasn't available. My neighbor Marion, who often helped me watch Jenna in emergencies, was out of state visiting her son. I thought about hiring a babysitter, but leaving Jenna alone with a stranger while I was across town? No. My gut twisted just picturing it. For almost 20 minutes, I paced my kitchen, phone in hand, running through my options. Then I landed on what seemed like the most reasonable choice. I called my mother. The phone barely rang twice before Mom picked up. Her voice came through the speaker warm and enthusiastic, like she'd been waiting for me to ask. Of course, honey. Bring Jenna over. Mason is here too. They can play together. They'll have fun. Mason, my nephew, Laura's son. Same age as Jenna. Same house where I used to feel safe as a child. I felt my shoulders relax a little. I thanked Mom, hung up, and told myself I was doing the right thing. My daughter wouldn't be alone. She'd have her grandma and her cousin. I wish I'd listened to the small, uneasy voice in the back of my mind. Around 8 o'clock a.m., I drove Jenna to Mom's house. As soon as the door opened, Mom pulled Jenna into a hug like she was the star of some cheesy family commercial. A kiss on the cheek, a soft, "My sweet girl, Grandma missed you." Watching them, my heart warmed for a moment. She's still her grandmother, I thought. Whatever our differences, she loves Jenna. Behind my mom stood Mason, TV remote already in his hand, eyes glued to the screen. He barely glanced at us. Mason is Laura's son, and every weekend Laura and her husband, Brandon, drop him off for my mom to babysit. They head off to brunches, shopping, golf, business meetings, anything but parenting. If I'm being honest, I don't like Brandon, and lately I like Laura even less. Laura used to be sweet, gentle, and a little insecure. She always felt like she needed to catch up to everyone else. But after she married Brandon, who owns a small construction materials company, she became different. She started showing off, bragging, looking down on people, especially me. In her eyes, I'm just an ordinary employee, even though my position is stable and I've worked hard for it. I got tired of the snide comments, the passive-aggressive digs, so I started limiting contact. I didn't want Jenna growing up around that constant judgment and tension. As for my mom, my dad passed away in 2019, and she's been living alone ever since. Somewhere along the way, Laura, Brandon, and Mason became her golden family. Every year, they shower her with expensive gifts, designer bags, luxury vacations, spa packages. With my salary, I can only manage flowers, a family dinner, and regular phone calls. I thought love would count more than luxury. Apparently, it didn't. That morning, seeing Mason already in the living room, I told myself it was fine. At least Jenna wouldn't be bored. I bent down and hugged my daughter tightly, trying to shake off a weird, quiet anxiety I couldn't name. Be good, okay? Stay with Grandma. I'm going to meet a client. I'll pick you up around noon. Jenna nodded, her smile bright and trusting. Okay, Mom. Good luck. You'll get the deal. I know it. I kissed her forehead and watched her run into the house. I had no idea that when I came back, I would never see this house the same way again. The meeting went even better than I'd dared to hope. After 2 hours of intense discussion, the client signed. The biggest deal of my career. I wanted to scream with joy inside that quiet cafe. On the drive back, I was already planning how to celebrate. I'd take Jenna to her favorite Italian restaurant. We'd order the extra cheesy pasta she's obsessed with, and maybe even split a slice of tiramisu. But all that happiness disappeared the second my mother opened her front door. It took her a long time to answer the bell. When the door finally swung open, Mom's face wasn't her usual grandmother glow. Her eyes flickered with something nervous, guilty. Jenna, your mom's here, she called into the house, voice unusually rushed. Then she turned to me and tried on a smile that didn't fit. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Mom, I asked slowly, what's going on? She blinked too fast. Nothing, I'm fine, just tired from watching 2 kids. Before I could ask more, Jenna stepped out from the hallway with her little backpack slung over one shoulder. My heart twisted. Her eyes were red and swollen, like she'd been crying for a long time. Her face was drawn, her shoulders tense. But what really made my stomach drop was her elbow. The skin was scraped and angry, already swelling, the edges raw and fresh. I froze. Since Daniel died, I've been obsessed with keeping Jenna safe. Seeing her hurt like that was like watching someone reach into my chest and squeeze. I crouched down in front of her and gently took her arm. Jenna, sweetheart, what happened to your elbow? She didn't answer. Instead, she glanced sideways, toward my mother. And in that split second, I caught it. The way Mom was staring at Jenna. Not worried, not sad. Warning her. Nothing serious, Mom cut in quickly. She tripped while running around. Clumsy, like you were at that age. She forced a laugh. I already cleaned it and put some cream on. I looked from my mother's face back to Jenna's. Is that true? I asked softly. You tripped? Jenna's hands twisted together. She kept her eyes glued to the floor. After a few long seconds, she gave a tiny nod. But everything in me screamed that she was lying. My voice dropped. Jenna, what have I always told you? I waited until she lifted her eyes to mine. A good kid never has to lie to me, right? Her lower lip trembled, her eyes filled with tears all over again. The silence between us felt like it stretched for hours. Then, with a little shudder, she whispered, Mom, I didn't fall. Mason pushed me. It felt like the world around me went quiet. Behind me, I heard my mother's sharp intake of breath. No, that's not what happened, she stammered. Jenna, sweetie, you fell. Remember? You fell by yourself. I turned to her slowly. Are you saying, I asked, my voice shaking, that my daughter is lying to me? She didn't answer. She just looked away. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just a scraped elbow. Something much uglier was hiding under that bandage. I swallowed hard, turned back to my daughter, and said as steadily as I could, I'm here now. Tell me everything that happened. Don't be scared. I will protect you. Jenna's eyes filled, and her small shoulders shook as she took a breath. Then she started to talk. Jenna's voice was thin and shaky at first, like she was afraid of the words themselves. "This morning, after you left, Mason and I were watching TV," she began. "I wanted to watch my cartoon, and he wanted to watch some game show." Her eyes dropped to the floor again. I could almost see her rewinding those moments in her head. "I was holding the remote," she said, and he grabbed it from my hand and pushed me down. I felt my jaw clench. "Once?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "I got up and told him we could take turns, but he just laughed at me," she whispered. I tried to get the remote back, and he pushed me again, harder. I could picture it perfectly, Mason's entitled little smirk, the way he'd been sitting there earlier with the remote like a king on his throne. And then my voice sounded calmer than I felt. Inside, my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. "The third time," her voice cracked. "I told him he should share if he's older. That's what you told me. He yelled that it was his grandma's house, his TV, and that I was just a guest. And then he pushed me really hard, Mom. I couldn't stop it. I fell, and my elbow hit the corner of the table." Her other hand came up, fingers hovering over the swollen skin like she was afraid to touch it. "It hurt so bad," she whispered. "I started crying and screaming." I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth. I wanted to march straight into the living room and... No, I reminded myself. He's 10. However angry I am, he's still a child. "What did Grandma do?" I asked, already afraid of the answer. Jenna hesitated, eyes flickering toward my mother again. Mom was standing a few feet away, her lips pressed tightly together. The look she shot Jenna was quick, but I caught it, a warning. "Jenna," I said quietly, "look at me." She did. Tears trembled at the edges of her lashes. "Right now, I'm not listening to Grandma," I said. "I'm listening to you." That seemed to give her courage. She swallowed and continued. "Grandma came in and saw me on the floor crying," Jenna said, voice wobbling. "But she didn't yell at Mason. She just told me I was younger, and I should give in to him because he's the older cousin." My stomach turned. That sounded exactly like my mother. Golden grandchildren. Golden excuses. "Did she say anything else?" I asked. Jenna's breathing picked up, little shallow gasps. Her fingers twisted together so hard her knuckles turned white. She took me to the bathroom to clean the wound," Jenna said slowly. "She put some ointment and a bandage on it. I was still crying. I told her I would tell you what Mason did when you picked me up." I could see my mother's face tightening in the corner of my vision. "That's when," Jenna's voice dropped to a whisper, "that's when Grandma got mad at me." "How?" I asked, keeping my tone as level as I could. "She grabbed my shoulders and told me to stop crying," Jenna murmured. "She said if I told you the truth, you would get mad at her and stop visiting. She said she's old and alone, and if you leave her, no one will take care of me anymore." My heart stuttered. "Take care of you?" Jenna nodded, tears spilling over now. She said if you leave her and don't want me either, I would have to go to an orphanage," Jenna choked out. "She said if I tell you Mason pushed me, you'll be angry and you won't want to be my mom anymore." The room tilted slightly. For a moment, all I could hear was my own heartbeat roaring in my ears. My mother, had told my already fatherless child that if she told the truth, she'd be abandoned and sent away. I felt something inside me crack. "I was so scared, Mom," Jenna sobbed. "I didn't want you to leave me too, so I promised Grandma I'd lie. She told me to say I fell on my own, but when you asked me just now, I couldn't do it anymore. I'm sorry I lied." I pulled her into my arms so fast her words vanished against my chest. Hey, I whispered into her hair, my own eyes burning. "You didn't do anything wrong. Do you hear me? You did nothing wrong. I will never, ever leave you. Not for Grandma, not for anyone." Her small hands clung to my shirt with desperate strength. Behind us, the air felt heavy and cold. I slowly stood up, turning to face my mother. "Do you have anything to say?" I asked, my voice shaking with contained rage. "You threatened a 10-year-old girl with being abandoned if she told the truth. You told her I'd send her to an orphanage." Mom's chin trembled. She looked away. I just didn't want to cause drama over kids fighting. You know how sensitive Jenna is. No, I snapped. This isn't about drama. This is about terrorizing my daughter so you can protect your golden grandson." She flinched at that, but I wasn't done. "You asked her to lie to me," I continued. "You used her biggest fear against her, losing me, after she already lost her dad. Do you have any idea what that does to a child's mind?" "She's exaggerating," Mom muttered weakly. "I didn't mean it like that. I just said, if you got angry with me, life would be hard for both of them. That's all." Don't you dare spin this, I hissed. She repeated your exact words. I took a step past her. I needed to look Mason in the eye. He was still in the living room, sprawled on the couch, flipping through channels like nothing had happened. The sound of the TV filled the silence like static. I walked over, unplugged the TV cord from the wall. The screen went black. Mason twisted around, eyes wide with indignation. What the hell, Aunt Selena? He exploded. Are you crazy? I stared at him. Watch your mouth. He rolled his eyes. You can't tell me what to do. This is my grandma's house. Turn it back on. No, I said. We need to talk. Why did you push Jenna? He scoffed. Because she took my remote. She deserved it. She asked you to share, Mason, I replied through gritted teeth. You pushed her 3 times. Look at her elbow. He shrugged, not even glancing toward the doorway. She's just being dramatic. It's a baby scratch. My anger burned hotter. Did your parents teach you to talk like this? To hurt people and then act proud of it? Mason leaned back on the couch, eyes filled with contempt I've seen on his father's face many times. Shut up, loser, he spat. You're just jealous my dad is successful and you're not. For a split second, I saw red. Every muscle in my body screamed to react, to shout, to do something. But then I saw Jenna standing behind me, watching, her bandaged elbow cradled in her hand. I forced my voice to stay flat. You need help, Mason, I said quietly, and so do your parents. I stepped away from the couch and pulled out my phone. Behind me, my mother's voice rose, panicked. Selena, what are you doing? My fingers were steady as I dialed. When the 911 operator picked up, I said clearly, my child was physically attacked by another child and injured. I need officers to come to my mother's house to document this and make a report. I gave the address, hung up, and suddenly the room felt very, very small. You called the cops? Mom shouted, her voice shrill. Over some pushing? They're kids, Selena. I turned to her, my expression cold. No, I said. They're not just kids playing. My daughter was hurt. She was forced to lie, and you terrorized her with threats of an orphanage. This is not a misunderstanding. This is abuse and cover-up. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I walked back to Jenna, wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and led her to sit with me on the front porch steps. We sat there in silence, the late morning breeze brushing past us, while my mother paced inside, mumbling to herself. 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of the house. 2 officers stepped out, 1 male, 1 female. I stood up, heart pounding, and met them halfway up the path. The female officer gave me a small, reassuring nod. Ma'am, I'm Officer Reyes. This is Officer Collins. Can you tell us what happened? Right there, on my mother's front walkway, the same path where I once came home with scraped knees and secrets. I told strangers what my own family had done to my child. As I spoke, Jenna clung to my hand. When I finished, Officer Reyes crouched down to Jenna's eye level. Hi, Jenna, she said gently. Do you think you can tell me what happened in your own words? Jenna's grip on my fingers tightened. I squeezed back. It's okay, I whispered. You're safe now. Tell her the truth. Jenna took a shaky breath. Mason pushed me 3 times, she started. And as she began to retell the story, I saw Officer Reyes's face change, soft sympathy turning into quiet concern. Somewhere behind us, I heard Officer Collins step into the house, heading toward my mother and Mason. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment everything would shift. The moment my family stopped being just family and started being people the law had to keep away from my child. Officer Reyes stayed with Jenna and me on the porch, while Officer Collins went inside to speak with my mother and Mason. From where I sat, I could hear bits and pieces through the open doorway. My mom's trembling voice, Mason's loud, entitled tone, Officer Collins's calm but firm questioning. Jenna sat pressed against my side, bandaged elbow resting in her lap. Every time she flinched at a loud noise inside the house, I ran my fingertips over her shoulder in slow, soothing circles. After a few minutes, Officer Collins re-emerged. His expression told me everything before he even spoke. My mother had told the truth, but Mason had not taken things well. Ma'am, Officer Collins said, glancing toward the house with a small sigh. Your mother admitted that Mason pushed your daughter. She also admitted to discouraging Jenna from telling you. I've documented that. My jaw tightened. Thank you, officer. As for the boy, Collins rubbed the bridge of his nose. He was verbally aggressive with me. He's 10, so we can't escalate things, but I've included his behavior in the report. Behind him, Mason's voice suddenly echoed from inside. You can't do anything to me. My dad will sue you. Do you know who my dad is? The officers exchanged glances. Officer Reyes muttered under her breath, "Oh, we've got one of those." Jenna flinched at the yelling. I wrapped my arm around her tightly. Officer Reyes finished her notes and stood. "Ms. Crowford, here's what I recommend. Take Jenna to the hospital for a checkup. Get a medical report of her injuries. CPS will follow up with you tomorrow. They'll guide you through next steps." Next steps, meaning this wasn't going away. I nodded. "Thank you, officers." Before leaving, the female officer crouched once more in front of Jenna. "You did the right thing telling the truth, sweetheart. You're very brave." Jenna nodded weakly. Then the officers walked back to their patrol car, and my mother hovered silently behind the screen door, watching them leave. I didn't say another word to her. I just took Jenna's hand, walked to my car, and drove away from the house that, after today, no longer felt like a grandmother's home. The hospital report. At the hospital, the fluorescent lights made Jenna's elbow look even more raw. The nurse cleaned it again, and the doctor inspected the swelling. "Luckily, no fractures," he said. "Just soft tissue trauma and abrasions. She'll be okay." Relief washed through me, but it didn't erase the fury. Before the doctor left, I requested copies of the medical report. He paused, looking at Jenna, then at me. He must have seen something in my expression because he said, "I'll make sure it's detailed." On the drive home, Jenna stared out the window quietly, her reflection small and pale in the glass. I reached over, gently taking her hand. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you sooner," I whispered. Jenna shook her head. "You protected me today, Mom." Her voice wavered. "Are you mad at me for lying at first?" That question stabbed me right in the chest. "No," I said firmly. "You were scared. You were manipulated. That wasn't your fault. I'm proud of you for telling the truth." She finally gave me a small, fragile smile, one that felt like a sunrise after a long, dark night. The doorbell that wouldn't stop. It was around 7 p.m. when the doorbell started ringing. Not politely. Not like someone who belonged there. Violent, repeated, urgent. I checked the security camera, and my stomach dropped. Standing on my porch were my sister Laura, face twisted with rage, her husband Brandon, fists clenched, Mason, arms crossed, glaring, and my mother, looking small but not exactly remorseful. The moment Laura noticed the camera, she launched into shouting, "Selena, open this door right now!" I didn't move, didn't go near the handle, didn't invite that poison inside my home. After no response, Brandon stepped forward, jabbing his finger toward the door like he could stab through the air. "You think you can call the cops on my son?" he roared. "You're jealous. That's what this is. Jealous of our success." Behind him, Mason added his own commentary. "She's insane. Jenna's a liar. Let us in, Aunt Selena. You're so pathetic." Jenna, hearing everything from the hallway, shrank back. I pulled her into her room, locked the door, and whispered, "No matter what they say, none of this is your fault. I won't open that door. I won't let them near you." Her eyes filled with tears again. But this time, she nodded without breaking. Back at the front hall, the shouting escalated. My mother's voice joined the chaos. Not to defend Jenna, but to tell me to stop making trouble, that this is family business, and that I needed to apologize to Mason. I picked up my phone, again. The moment the dispatcher answered, I said, "This is the second time today. My family is harassing me outside my home. They're refusing to leave. I need officers sent immediately." 15 minutes later, sirens lit up the street. This time the officers didn't play around. Laura tried to argue. Brandon tried to threaten lawsuits. Mason cursed at the officers. My mother cried and said I was ruining the family. But none of them were allowed to stay. The officers ordered them off my property and documented the harassment. Before getting into their car, Laura turned and screamed into the darkening evening, "You'll pay for this, Selena, I swear it." The police car slowly pulled away, escorting them down the street. I stood behind my locked door, Jenna trembling in my arms, and whispered, "They can scream all they want, but they will never touch you again." Inside me, something solidified. A decision, a boundary. And once that boundary formed, I knew exactly what I had to do next. CPS arrives. The next morning, at exactly 9 a.m., a CPS worker, a stern, middle-aged woman named Ms. Harlow, knocked on my door. She reviewed every part of the police reports, the hospital documents, and Jenna's statements. Her face hardened as she flipped through the files. Then she looked up at me and said, "Ms. Crowford, based on everything I see here, you have every right to file for a restraining order against your mother, sister, brother-in-law, and nephew. And you should." Jenna sat beside me on the couch, hugging her knees. "And Mason?" I asked quietly. "He'll need psychological evaluations," Ms. Harlow said. His behavior and disrespect toward officers is concerning. If CPS determines there is a pattern of violent conduct and poor parental guidance, there may be further consequences for his parents. I blinked. What does that mean? It means, she said carefully, if this continues, Laura and Brandon may be at risk of losing custody of Mason. The gravity of her words sat heavy in the room. I looked at Jenna, my daughter, who was just starting to feel safe again. I knew what I had to do. I signed all the paperwork, every page trembling slightly under my pen, and I chose my daughter over my family. Ms. Harlow stood to leave. This was the right decision, Ms. Crowford. I know it hurts, but you did what a mother is supposed to do. When she left, the house felt quiet, heavy, safe. And for the first time, I realized, sometimes protecting your child means becoming the enemy in someone else's story. I could live with that, as long as Jenna was protected. But I didn't know then that this was only the beginning. The real consequences, for all of us, were still coming. The restraining order hearing was set for 2 weeks later. 2 weeks of silence, 2 weeks of waiting, 2 weeks of Jenna sleeping with the hallway light on. On the morning of the hearing, I dressed Jenna for school, hugged her a little tighter than usual, and then drove to the courthouse alone. She didn't have to be there. The judge didn't want to put her through that trauma again. Her statement and the reports were enough. When I stepped into the courtroom, I immediately saw them. Laura, Brandon, my mother, and their lawyer, sleek suit, cold eyes, fake confidence. They sat on the left side of the courtroom like a united front. But the moment Laura saw me, her expression twisted, anger mixed with disbelief, like she still couldn't process that I had dared do this to her family. My own lawyer, recommended by my company, put a reassuring hand on my arm. "We have everything we need," he murmured. "Just stay calm." It was the longest hour of my life. The judge reads the truth. The judge reviewed every document slowly and methodically. Police report number 1, Jenna injured, Grandma Patricia covering up. Police report number 2, harassment at my home. Medical records, elbow swelling and abrasion. CPS recommendation, restraining order advised. Notes on Mason's aggressive behavior toward officers. Every page felt like a nail in the coffin of what used to be my family. Finally, the judge cleared his throat. After reviewing the evidence, the court grants the plaintiff, Ms. Selena Crowford, a restraining order. My breath caught. The judge continued, voice steady and unmistakable. Effective immediately, Patricia Miller, Laura Jenkins, Brandon Jenkins, and minor Mason Jenkins are prohibited from contacting or approaching Jenna Crowford within 500 feet for the duration of 2 years. Laura shot up from her seat. "What? That's unbelievable. She's lying. She's manipulating." Her lawyer yanked her back down. "Sit down." Brandon muttered something under his breath about weak judges and overreacting women. The judge's eyes snapped toward him. "Mr. Jenkins, if you speak out of turn again, I will have you removed from this courtroom." Brandon shut up, but not without glaring daggers at me. Then the judge continued reading. As for the minor child, Mason Jenkins, the court orders mandatory psychological evaluations and 6 months of counseling. Furthermore, Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins are required to complete a certified parenting class. That's when Brandon exploded. He stood up so aggressively his chair squealed against the floor. "My son doesn't need counseling. He's fine. You're humiliating us." The judge's voice turned icy. "Sit down, now, or the bailiff will do it for you." Brandon sat, barely. The judge ended with a warning. "This is the first officially documented violent incident involving the minor child. Should any future incidents occur, the court will reconsider custody arrangements." Meaning, they were one step away from losing Mason. The courtroom fell silent. Then the judge struck the gavel. "Court is adjourned." My lawyer leaned in. "This is the best outcome we could have hoped for." I nodded, numb, relieved, yes, but also grieving. Because even when justice is necessary, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I walked out of the courthouse that day with a protective order around my daughter like a shield. But fate had something else in store for the Jenkins family, something none of us could have predicted. The park incident. 4 months later, the phone rang while I was at work. A relative, a cousin,